I've been a photographer for over 15 years now, and at some point along that 15-year journey, I found my way into street photography. And even though I've dabbled in lots of different areas of photography, street photography is one that I've always come back to and is one that has always held a very strong place in my heart, and I practice it quite often. So today I wanted to share some knowledge that I've learned along the way, because I do feel like there is a bit of a learning curve with street photography, and there's always room for improvement. Also, a little disclaimer, I'm not an expert in street photography. I just enjoy it. I've done it for many years. I've studied it at school, so I kind of know what I'm talking about, but also take this disclaimer as you will. I've split this video into 3 sections, so feel free to jump around if you want to skip certain parts. I'll try and put time codes up for you to skip around. We have section 1, which is confidence, because I feel like it's bloody scary getting out in public and taking out your camera and taking photos of people. Coming from an incredibly anxious person, I feel like I have learnt a lot of tips along the way to help me deal with that lack of confidence and anxiety when it comes to shooting people. Number 2 will be composition. These will be little things that you can look for during your shoots and little experiments that you can do to get better photos. And section 3, we have rules I like to live by. Little rules I've learned along the way, or little miscellaneous tips for the end. So if we jump straight into confidence, my number 1 tip for confidence is expect a no. Now, I kind of split street photography into 2 different sections, and there's one section that I like to call candid photography, where you're kind of capturing the moment. You're not posing anybody. Everyone is exactly how they are naturally in the moment. And then you've got posed photography, where you are literally asking them for a photograph. Both can lead to some really amazing results, but asking people is really scary. And I'm a really anxious person, and I get all up in my head, get all nervous asking, and it often results in me not asking, and then I lose the opportunity for what could have been a great photograph. I like to, in my head, expect a no. So if I'm going up to somebody, I'm like, okay, they're gonna say no, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised if they say yes, and then you won't be disappointed when they say no. I got this tip from a book. I'll try and remember the book name and I'll put it in. My second tip is you're never going to see these people ever again. This kind of goes hand in hand with the expect a no. And this is a tip that I like to use in my day-to-day life as well. I often feel like people are staring at me, especially when I get my camera out, or especially if it has a GoPro attached to the top. I feel like I'm the center of attention. But if I think, literally, I'm never going to see these people ever again, so just fuck it. Why not? What are they going to do? We're all on this big floating rock anyway. Who cares? It really, really helps. And then tip number 3 is listening to music. I like to keep one earbud in and listen to music when I'm on photo walks and stuff. It helps me get into the zone and kind of drown out the thoughts of, oh, everyone's staring at me, everybody thinks I'm weird. But the music kind of drowns that out. And another half tip, I guess, is if you listen to music that kind of matches the style of the images that you're wanting to take, it can really, really help with elevating the creativity and things like that. So if I'm going for relaxing vibes, I'll put on relaxing music. If I want intense contrasting images, I'll put on quite intense R&B music. Remember to only keep one earbud in, because you need to be aware of your surroundings, and safety is really, really important. Traffic, other people, knowing where you are, all the rest, very important. Then we're going to move on to composition. I have so many tips for composition, and I think I might make a video about this, about all my tips later down the line, but these are my top 3. So number 1 is reflections. I love to look for reflections in water sources like puddles or rivers, and then windows are a great source of reflections. Panes of glass as well, so bus stop panes of glass. I feel like they create a lot of texture, and then you've got layers going on with the foreground, middle ground, background. It gives you so much to look for. So yeah, I always keep my eye out for reflections. Gives an abstracty feel. Another composition technique is framing within a frame. Now, this is a very, very popular composition technique. But I do like to keep it in the back of my mind when I'm shooting. Framing within a frame is when you use something in your foreground that creates a frame around your subject, which helps draw the eye into the subject matter. Things that I like to look out for are trees, branches, things like that, doorways and windows or arches or things like that. They are really, really good for framing within a frame. And if you can get a frame within a frame within a frame, then you've really hit the jackpot. Now, my next tip for composition is movement. Now, this isn't really like composition, I guess, but it's more something that I look out for when I'm shooting. Anything where like people are doing something, so jumping, running, cycling, birds flying, all the rest of it, just any form of movement is great. And I know a lot of people experiment with like slow shutter speeds, which is great, all for it. And whilst it's good to experiment with slower shutter speeds, I do feel like movement can be captured in a fast shutter speed, and sometimes it's even better than the slow shutter. When you freeze that moment of movement, it gives such a different vibe to the slow shutter. I do feel like the slow shutter is very, very popular at the moment. So experiment. Do both. And we are already on to the final section. My little rules that I like to live by to help me be a better photographer. This is a very famous rule. If you research any kind of street photography tips, like this one will come up quite often. And it is the 5-minute rule. The 5-minute rule is basically when you find a composition that you like, say you like a source of light, or you like how things are lining up in your frame, but nothing's really going on. If you learn to be patient and sit there for 5 minutes, something will happen. And I don't often wait for 5 minutes because I do feel like 5 minutes is a long time, especially when you're not doing much. It does teach you to be patient and just sit and wait for something to happen, because somebody will walk by, something will happen, and you never know what it's going to be. And it might surprise you and you might get the best image ever. Because if you had walked away and you'd be like, oh, I like this image, but nothing's happening, walk away, 2 minutes later, a man with a bird on his head walks by. Fucking best picture ever. You missed it. You missed it. So yeah, 5-minute rule. Patience is a virtue. My next rule is take your camera everywhere with you. I am bloody guilty of not doing this because my hands are always full. I never bring a bag with me and I very rarely bring my camera anywhere. But I try. But especially if you're just learning, I would always recommend keeping your batteries on charge, bringing a form of camera with you, and this can be your phone, a basic camera in your bag, because you never know when like an opportunity is going to come about. But yeah, take your camera everywhere with you. I feel like I'd rather bring my camera and not take photos than see an opportunity to take a picture and then not have a camera with me. I guess it's kind of different now because your phone is always with you, but it's just something to keep in mind. And then my last rule, which I briefly touched on before in the first section, but it is to stay safe. Photography will take you to some amazing places, and it's really easy to wander really, really far from where you initially started. The amount of times I've gotten into the zone and wandered down the wrong street or taken the wrong route, you can take wrong turns and you can suddenly feel not safe. I remember recently I was in Blackpool and I went down the wrong street, and suddenly I was in this like completely different area, and I had this guy that was like following me really, really close behind, and I just didn't feel safe at all. Just remember to always keep your phones on charge. If there's an emergency, keep it at hand, and remember that to keep only one earphone in so that you are aware of your surroundings. I also like to plan out my routes before I go and try to stick to them as best as possible to kind of alleviate that stress of not knowing where I'm going or accidentally wandering into an unsafe part of the town. And I always trust my gut. If I feel like something's wrong, I turn around. I go back to where I felt safe. You can get a sense of where is safe and what is not safe. Those are my little tips that I've learned along the way of my 15 years of street photography. And I hope they help you along your journey of learning. I'm often doing videos where I show like the behind the scenes of me shooting street photography. So feel free to go and check those out. I really enjoy doing them, and I hope they inspire you to get out and shoot more. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, And feel free to subscribe and give me a follow and all of that jazz. Bye.